Good evening, everybody. What is up, Bird brothers and sisters? Lindy End Zone in the building once more for the touchdown, taking the lead for the Philadelphia Eagles, one video at a time, as I always try to do, and occasionally dropping buckets for the Dallas Mavericks, who are currently playing and got to get another decent win here against the Phoenix Suns, who I think are not 100%. I don't know. I haven't followed them well enough, but I'm not sure on the status of the Phoenix Suns. But I do know that they are a top defensive team, and Dallas is in they're going to be in a bit of a bind for their next three games and playing Phoenix, Memphis, and I forget the third quality team that they play. But we're going to find out what they're made of. But that is besides the point, because this is Touchdown Talk, keeping the show alive, episode 5, and as a first, with Nightinqs, who runs his series of Nightinqs Sports, and he also has a podcast called Just a Rival, and of course it is with a rival featuring football talk with Benny, a New York Giants content creator. Nightinqs really continuing to grow and strive into the scene of content creation with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he does gaming on the side, and and just building his repetition or reputation, for that matter, through his channel, and is off to a good start, I would say, so far. So, Nightinqs, it's finally good to have you on the show here. It's been a long time coming that collaboration has happened.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I know you had a call in on Sunday about the Eagles lost in the wild cards to the Bucks, but even so, that was not enough in my opinion. So came ahead and scheduled something that I think we agreed on would be an hour and a half, which is still pretty good time to talk about the Eagles and such. So yeah, really quick, if you don't mind, if you if can I say if where I go by, or what platforms I'm on?
Yeah, no, it's no big deal at all. You might as well, before we get deeper into the show, so people have an idea on where they can find you even after this program.
Yeah. All right, thank you. So, obviously I go by Nightinqs on YouTube. I don't even have to, I'll post a link here. I'm the only Nightinqs on YouTube, so you can search me up. On my name is right there. So once you find me, you can connect with me on Twitter. I'm found a lot there, as well as I also have a Discord server you guys can join. It's pretty quiet in there right now, but we have a good community. And of course, there are people you can recognize in the Eagles community there, and there's so much to do. And like Lindy said, I do obviously do sports content on Philadelphia Sports. Haven't done much Phillies and Flyers, but I've done a lot of Eagles and some Sixers. And also right now, I've not done a lot of gaming videos, but that's what I do as well. And trust me, I'm figuring out a way to, bring more gaming content and, making it more creative. And then I'll be back on the grind for that. And of course, my podcast is just Football Talk with Benny, the Survival Podcast. By the way, next episode might be tomorrow. I mean, not tomorrow, maybe day after tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. All right. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
There we go. Good deal. And I think it would also help if I had the if I had the display names activated on the on the show right now. I think that would help some people out, especially in terms of spelling, because it could be misleading that it's actually a Q instead of a G.
Yeah, everybody makes that mistake. I see people put a G on there, but I keep telling them there's a Q, not a G.
Yeah. I remember that. Well, we got ourselves another jam-packed show here that we, between Nightinqs and I, and this is going to be a similar platform to episode 4, where the Eagles Uncensored podcast, or AK Eagles himself, has come on to the channel here, and we had to go back and forth with our own perspectives with each other, and go over the Eagles and how we felt on the season overall, how they looked in this playoff game, and so on and so forth. And while we haven't had much extra newer news to go off of, and we necessarily haven't heard anything new regarding the retirement of the possible retirement of Brandon Brooks, for that matter, other than it has been reported that we should be prepared in a sense for it to happen. But all in all, I'm not holding my breath right now. With this Brandon Brooks situation, especially, we understand that we have quality depth on the offensive line, and while Brooks would be a loss for what it is, I think it gets to a point where, and I don't know how you feel about this, Nightinqs, but it almost gets to a point where it does more harm than good in keeping a player like that on the roster, because you just don't know where they're going to be from a health perspective, whether it's physically or mentally going forward. And we've watched Brooks go through this before, fighting depression on and off, and then that double Achilles tear that he went through. And yeah, I mean, at 32 years old, I would have to imagine it's tough to contemplate retirement at this point, because I have to imagine also Brooks probably thinks he still has a lot left to give in the NFL, with all things considered. But sometimes you do have to pull the trigger early, even after certain things don't go your way.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, losing a player like Brooks, who he's been spending a lot of time here on this offensive line. Honestly, offensive line in general, it's just I've thought really highly of it, especially with the offensive line coach in Jeff Stoutland, right? And losing,
Mhm.
I mean, we lost him this season too. He had a season-ending injury. I can't even remember which week, but he was out for a majority of the season. Also, what's up, Joe Castro? And yeah, dude, I think it's time to move on for Brooks. As much as it pains me to say it, a lot of these players, there's also speculations of Fletcher Cox leaving as well, and that also pains me to say it. There's a lot of players on this roster who, that it is time to move on from, but it just pains me to say it, because Brandon Brooks again has spent a lot of time for offensive line. He's really good on the offensive line as well. I mean, that's the obvious one. And losing him for this year was also equally as upsetting. Right? But so I think the ride is done for Brandon Brooks, in my opinion. I think honestly it is time for him to retire. And we have to start looking at offensive line options, preferably in the draft really quickly, because whether you like it or not, there's also speculation of, is it going to hurt to say, but as well as Jason Kelsey, also retiring. I really don't want, man. I want Kelsey to just, I want him to stay for at least another year. He's just in my opinion, he's just a legend in this city. I honestly think he is. I mean, you can disagree with me on that or not, but I don't know if there's much to disagree with, because, of course, he's one of the best centers in the league, and he's our franchise guy there on offensive line, right? So,
Yeah.
it pains me to say both Brooks and Kelsey. Well, I think, wait, did Brooks announce the retirement? I don't know if he announced.
No, it's just there's just a lot of speculation going on with it at this point, and there's conflicting reports here and there on the matter of, for us to prepare for, to prepare for that moment. Others are saying that there's not enough information on it. And you bring up Jason Kelsey too, and I think Jason to this point is at least 33, 34 years old, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's 34, And for Jason to still play at a Pro Bowl, All Pro type of level, that just screams the greatness of him at that position. And me personally, I thought Kelsey has been the best center in football for the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, he's been that damn good. And this is even considering some of the blunders that he has once in a blue moon, whether it's like botched snaps or holding penalties and what have you, that we're not expecting of him because of the high level he plays at. But even still, with what he was able to do in 2020 and holding that offensive line together, or being as crucial of a part in the trenches of our Super Bowl run and keeping the team together then, and going through the mess of quarterback changes, and at the end of 17 and towards the middle of 18 and then 2019, and he just battles through injury time and time again, where he doesn't want to take a snap off on the football field unless it's necessary. That's just also such a display to his toughness too. I mean, in terms of that offensive line, Kelsey is going to be he's going to be very hard. He's going to be very hard to replace, and I know how much of a level of potential there is with Landon Dickerson, but
Yep.
you know, and this is me, and I don't know how else other people see this, but watching Landon on that left side with Jordan Mailata, and how a rookie played with still a young developing left tackle that did make a Pro Bowl case, them two look pretty darn good together. So I'm not sure, and of course this is going to be like a worst case scenario type of matter, and if the players that are on the board aren't there, if you go to the draft for answers at the center spot, whether Kelsey retires or not, I don't know. I don't know if I would want to move Landon to center right away. I mean, we were at a point in time where that was part of the whole process of bringing Isaac Seumalo in, because they didn't think Kelsey was going to be that guy at one point at the center position. And worst comes to worst, unfortunately, Seumalo is another Achilles tear victim, and we have to see how he bounces back from that. And through that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, with this Brandon Brooks situation, it's gonna be tough to go through. But knowing, or going through what we did towards the end of 2020 and a little bit of 2019, because we were stressing this to each other and like addressing the front office in this matter, that at some point they're going to have to get rid of these aging veterans, and and let the sentimental value go of what they produced as a Philadelphia Eagle. And we don't want to fall into that same trap again, especially with guys on the offensive line, where Howie always makes it a big emphasis year after year that when he goes into this draft, he wants to continue to mold the trenches and continue to add depth to those positions there. And he's going to stay true to form. He's going to stay true to his system, like he said in his presser with Nick Sirianni. And we're just going to have to take our punches if that happens. And before I continue to go on, I do have to take notice to Joe Castro popping in, letting us know that he is at least listening at work. And yeah, man, I do that on first shift, myself all the time. I got to keep myself entertained, got to keep myself in the loop, and it only and it only makes me feel good to know that others in the content creator community do the same for me. So yeah, man, thanks a lot, Castro. So he ends up, and before we get to his comment on Brooks, shout out to Coastline. What's going on, man? BPS Big Play Slay is also in the house to give us a quick hello. So Castro, from what he is saying, it says it's both right now. From what I'm told, Brooks hasn't been very concrete on whether he wants to come back. The feel is there was a setback with his rehabilitation, and it mentally took a toll. And to be honest, I'm not surprised because we've already been through this before with Brooks, and the first time it happened, the tragedy of it was pretty bad. I mean, when he went through that first Achilles tear and it it tore him apart because he wanted to be on the field with his guys, and sometimes the mental aspect is more important. And we know this because okay, there's another example that's currently going on right now. On the last episode of Touchdown Talk, and I brought up the first 11 players who got signed to reserve future contracts, and we've seen a couple of receivers in there, and a guy that the Eagles claimed off of waivers from the Colts, I believe, because it was a guy that Sirianni knew in Deion Kane. He got a futures deal over John Hightower. And what has been the situation with John Hightower for the longest time, and and this spans back to 2020 in his rookie year, that the fact that when Jason Avant was on that coaching staff as an assistant helping out Aaron Moorhead, he felt that Hightower was a kid that just has a low motor to the point of that Avant felt he didn't love football enough, and it sucks when you have almost all the talent in the world. Like when you have all the, when you think like when you have all the talent in the world, that the potential is untapped. And Avant has said at that point in time that he felt that Hightower was the best route runner on the team, and he just needed to get over some things with himself and really create like a tunnel vision that it should be football 24/7 and stuff like that. Increase your dedication to that level, and this is just another example of where John Hightower is, and it's unfortunate. And now with Brandon Brooks going through the supposed setback and rehabilitation, you can though I mean, and I don't know, you can't put two and two together, but the situations have a couple of things in common to certain extents.
Yeah, I mean John Hightower. I'm not gonna lie. When he got drafted, I mean, I honestly was excited because we had we got a lot of draft picks with a lot of speed, and I mean it still goes to show this day. I mean, as much as I hate to say it, Rager, is fast. Quez is really fast. I really love Quez's speed, and Hightower was I mean I don't know how else to put it. He was also really fast, right? Our wide receiver core looked young, looked healthy, and it looked quick. And a lot of people are hyping it up, and I don't even blame them. I was also the same type of person. I believe I think when we started 2020 season, yeah, I was hyping that wide receiver core up a lot because, like I said, the speed they had, and they were young, and I mean it still is pretty young. I was even excited for John Hightower. I know he's a late round pick, but still, and it's really disappointing to see that I've not seen him at all on the field. I don't think I've seen him the snap this entire season. I may be tripping, but I've literally not seen him for a snap. I'm not even joking. So
No, I mean, if anything, he could have. if anything, he could have been involved in special teams, but I don't know. I don't know if there was at any point him being activated to the active roster. All I remember is that he was protected consistently. Well, I almost had to sneeze, but he was protected consistently for a fraction of the time, and it was more towards the beginning of the season, and he just you know and they felt that this guy was good enough that he ended up beating out Travis Fulgham, and they cut him. And then he was supposed to give some kind of competitive atmosphere to Quez Watkins, and then that did and then that didn't work. And and I don't know. It's just and it was like it's like when you're on a roller coaster and all it's doing is going down faster and faster and faster, and it just takes no other direction. And as it just felt that it was just a inescape like an unescapable downward spiral. And and now it's just a detriment to the player. And because we don't know what kind of detriment it would have been to the team, since he didn't get the chance to show anything on the field. And obviously we weren't ever going to be a position where Jalen Reagor was going to get benched. I mean, Howie has his moments where he's too prideful for that to even happen, especially when it was absolutely necessary, and it still didn't happen. Reagor still never got benched when at times where he deserved it because of inconsistency, whether it's dropping game winners against the Giants or the amount of muff punts and him trying to find the right angle to get under the ball, or miscommunication and fair catches. I mean, whatever the case may be. I'll do you one better. Him not being able to beat man coverage against Tampa's corners, and especially Jamel Dean. I mean, Jamel Dean's not a world beater, and Reagor is sitting there hand fighting with him for 3 seconds, can't even get off the line, and and be a pass target for his quarterback. It was so frustrating to watch, and he only got open because it was a scramble drill, and Jamel tripped up on himself, and the play just ended up not working in the end. It's those little things that continue to grow over the course of the season, and it just you don't want to see it on your TV screen anymore. It's terrible. So I mean, while we're still on the subject of receivers, since I brought up Hightower and then you went into the Reagor tangent, it's only fair that we keep it going. And I do know that AK and I touched on it a little bit for a decent bit, actually, based on Sirianni's comments and what Reagor had to say about himself and what Howie had to say about Reagor. And here we go again, right?
Yeah.
So at this press conference, they talked about the receivers, and the questions were being brought up, of course, to Nick first, respectively, and asking him how he would evaluate the performance of the receivers this year, like who was standing out, and what the and like potential pecking orders, and if they feel that they need to bring in some free agency help in the off season. And then we end up getting to the point where Sirianni talks about a rank of 3 guys, and to a shock for some, And for others, it's not a shock at all. But Sirianni felt that Devontae Smith is capable of being a number one receiver, and I think a lot of us know that right now. But I think he's only going to get there until you build a better cast around him. That's able to spread the defense around a little bit. And while Smith was as good as he was at the collegiate level and being a Heisman winner and everything, and it hasn't been done in a long time, the NFL is a different game. And while Smith was the most NFL ready as a wide receiver, there's little nuances at the professional level that he's still going through, and he's still learning, and he has to apply those when he gets on the field with his quarterback. Um, and that's one of the biggest things right now is that this receiving core doesn't have a high quality legitimate veteran to lean on, and then it only stems down a little bit worse and worse, and not worse to a negative standpoint, but the talent level has limitations, and that level isn't high enough to elevate the play of the quarterback. It's not able to elevate the play of the running backs or the tight ends, and it eventually stems into the entire offense as a whole. That's where we are right now, and we have to accept it. But in Sirianni talking about that, he has said in his pecking order, he still feels Smith can be a number one in due time. And then he goes on to say that he feels Quez can be a good number two. And, that was interesting. So I have to know how you took that when Sirianni said that, he thought Quez could be a number two complement to Devontae Smith, and then Rager ends up being a number three. Wow, a first round pick as a first round pick as a number three receiver, and of course to this point we know that a lot of that is with good reason, and Sirianni has come out and flat out, Sirianni has come to flat out say that they and him and Howie included, like the both of them, they both said that they have expected more from Rager this year, and he's got a lot of work to do. But I gotta know your perspective on the terms of Sirianni feeling that Quez Watkins is capable of being a number two in this system.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know about that, honestly, because like you said, we need a veteran wide receiver, right? I do agree that Smith could be a really good wide receiver one, and even though this year, I'll even admit, in some games Smith got, I mean, not absolutely no targets, but he should have gotten way more targets. Still, even with the extra game, broke the Eagles, I believe, rookie receiving yards record. And I totally agree with that. But Quez being a wide receiver too, as much as I love Quez, I really do not know about that. Again, Quez, has tremendous speed, and he can. I think in the Bucks game, he did, burn a Bucks defender, and he was open. But Hurts, he basically Hurts had him, and then Hurts overshot him not once but twice, right? So we already know the potential Quez shows, especially with that speed. And that's why I keep saying, I said before the game, Hurts and Quez need to have more of a deep connection, honestly. And I mean, that's not really too far-fetched because, again, like I keep saying, the speed, he can get open. And if you hit him deep, then that's going to be a big play. Just remember what happened week 2, San Francisco. Not a touchdown, but it was first and goal, right? So, however, wide receiver 2, though, I think he's more suited for wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, you don't throw the ball deep every single play, in certain situations, and I think that's what he's best suited for, right? And then that's kind of a deep threat receiver being in a wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4 position sounds not really appealing, but I mean, again, it suits him, and I don't know if we let's say, I think if we brought in a veteran wide receiver, I think Devontae's wide receivers too, still pretty high though, and he's still learning. With a veteran wide receiver like Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, Calvin Ridley. If we do get one of those guys, maybe even, and I don't think DK Metcalf's not a veteran, but if there's speculation about him coming here as well, right? So I disagree with Sirianni. I don't think Quez is a wide receiver too. I think he's more suited for the wide receiver 3 position.
Okay. All right. Now, before we get a little bit further into that, I'm gonna pause for a moment to indicate that we've already we've had quite a bit of conversation so far, already over the 30-minute mark. So appreciate the attendance that I got again this evening with 2 viewers / listeners. However, you are enjoying the presentation. Thank you either way. And I do want to shout out a little idea that has come to mind in the last couple of days, rooting through some of my things to adjust to add to my display table here. So a little while ago, we got a bit of representation for Birdman 951 here. He sent me a sticker. He sent me a sticker in the mail when I won my prize from the little game that he from the little like that quick thinking type of game that he was playing with the first time guests on his channel, and he included that sticker of him in the custom Brian Dawkins coffee mug, courtesy of his wife who creates them. So shout out to Bird Gang, Bird Gang. Shout out to Birdman, Mrs. Birdman for that. It was awesome. But where I'm going with this is that based on other content creators, if you have your own line of merch that whether it's through donation or whether it's through donation or whatever kind of merch that you have, I think I'm going to start to do a little bit of extra display with that. And Birdman sticker is a little bit lonely right there at the moment. So if you would like some of your merch to be displayed in the in the little background that I got for my channel, love to have it. So a little, I guess it's a part of a little thanks for the warm welcome that I have gotten into the Eagles content creator community since I started. So thank you to my supporters for that, and also thank you to other content creators that I got the privilege to not only work with, but hope to call friends at the same time, because that's what it's also about. So with that said, and in us in the discussion, and you felt that Quez isn't exactly a number 2 receiver, and I get where you're going with this. So if I may, bring up a little scenario here and saying, like, can you imagine Quez in the role of how Deshaun Jackson was in 2019 for Carson, but give Quez a higher snap count? Like, does that make a little more sense than making him a number 2?
I think so. I mean, obviously, Djax is my guy. I love Djax. He's my favorite all-time player. And I mean, you can't blame me. Djax, in his prime, if there was one guy on him, then he's absolutely getting burnt 100%. And you always remember that little celebration he did, at the end of the end zone. You cannot have a Djax touchdown without a celebration before going to the end zone. And honestly, Quez fitting on that role, I think that makes sense. And being a wide receiver number 2, like we had with Djax. And you obviously know Djax in 2019, in certain plays, we lined it up, on the line of scrimmage, and he had a route and he completely burned a guy. and he went straight into the end zone. I definitely see Quez doing that, and we've seen it. And I mean, of course, the Niners gameplay where he almost went into the end zone. He didn't score, but I mean, still, it doesn't even have to go into the end zone at all. You can even set up a first and goal situation with him. That is really good for any type of offense. So instead of being a wide receiver number 2, and also 2019 Djax, let's be honest, when you used him in that role you were talking about, he did not get that many snaps. I think Quez should get more snaps like that in
Yeah.
that position though. So yeah, I agree with you there. I think, well, I don't know if you're saying, he should do that, other than a wide receiver 2, but basically the point you were saying, I do agree with that. I think he would be better suited in that position. As
Yeah,
well.
of course. Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that while at this point in their careers, Deshaun Jackson had more talent, but at the same time, you can draw a line between the two, in in an equal means to say that in their second year going into their third, that neither of them are or were the greatest route runners, and they didn't do this thing good or they didn't do that thing good. But of course, that's a part of the development cycle, and it's about finding the perfect fit for your players. And of course, this is going to obviously be dictated by how the Eagles front office addresses these skill positions. And right now we're talking about receivers, so it's gonna depend on who they like on the practice squad. It's gonna depend on their end of the year evaluation for the receivers that played all year. The free agency pool. Where they feel their draft targets are going to, the projection of their draft targets landing. Like, are they, do they want that one receiver from Alabama? Do they want Chris Olave? Like, we don't know any of this. So I think only until then you would have a better idea on a more definitive role for a guy like Quez Watkins, and maybe biting my clenching my teeth on this, but maybe Jalen Rager.
Yeah.
We and this isn't Jalen Rager, the person per se that we're talking about like this. This is more Jalen Rager, the football player, and you know how massive of a letdown he has been for this football team when you take a chance on a kid that you feel is a first round talent and you take him that high, and yet he doesn't come remotely close to that kind of expectation. And and of course, this goes through multiple levels at times. And you know i felt I felt at certain times during the season, with the progress of these receivers, and it was said that going into this year, oh well, we finally have some consistency, at the personnel spot of a wide receiver coach, and we held on to Aaron Moorhead, and that was one of Sirianni's guys who was already here, and he knows Aaron very well. But and I did like some of the new drills that were implemented by Aaron, but at the same time, I don't know if those drills or his coaching style is even helping in terms of development, because from the lesser tier guys, and yeah, Rager's a part of that lesser tier. we haven't seen much growth from them. I mean, really, the only growth that we've seen from a receiver standpoint, minus some flashes from Quez Watkins, was obviously Devontae Smith because he was the most NFL ready. So there is going to be that's going to be a situation where you have to draw a line and say, well, what part of this is on the player and what part of this is on the coach, and how good of a job is that coach doing to try and change things up a bit and get into this player's head and be like, dude, what are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know if I can say Aaron Moorhead did all that good of a job this year. I mean, I, I don't know if I was necessarily impressed with it. You know, what is your take on this?
I mean, I think I'm gonna have to agree with you. You know, Rager. I mean, I think just like you said, I think he really needs to get inside his head and say, you need to knock it off. You need to focus because right now, I mean, to be fair, again, Quez, like you said, did show big flashes of potential. Devontae Smith in his first year did really, really great. Definitely one, definitely one of the best rookie receivers in the NFL this season. You can disagree with me on that all you want, but I mean, honestly, in my book, he did really well for his rookie season, and it can only go up from here. But right now, I don't know if Aaron Moorhead is really the choice at wide receiver coach. Like you said, he needs to get into the players' heads, and he's not really developing them as much as we need. Yeah, and also John Hightower, going on a off of a basis here. We barely saw any of him for all the seasons he was here. Quez is showing potential. Rager, I don't even know what to say about him anymore. JJ Arcega Whiteside, I don't even want to utter his name. Howie really said, we should keep him so, he could block really well. That's literally not his main job. He's not an offensive lineman. He's supposed to run. I mean, of course, wide receivers do block occasionally. That's not his main job, though. Your main job as a wide receiver is to obviously run routes, catch the ball, and score touchdowns. That's literally your job. And Howie says we should keep him on because he can block well. Just get lost with that, Howie. I don't agree with that whatsoever, right? So, yeah, I don't think Aaron Moorhead is sadly the right guy for the job. I think we need to get, I don't know if I say more aggressive, but just somebody who's, I'd say more aggressive as in, like not, an absolute jerk, but somebody who can really, talk to the guys, and firmly say, you guys need to focus and you guys need to knock it off, right? And, actually developing them. So that's, I wouldn't mind seeing another wide receiver coach. And, yeah, that's just my thoughts on it.
I honestly wish Jason Avant was still on this staff as an assistant. if I'm being totally honest, I wish Jason Avant was still doing it. But no, I mean, but when Avant talked about it, I understood where he was coming from, and there was a really good episode of Inside the Birds where he kind of broke down the amount of responsibility that goes on on a daily basis for the head coach of a football team, and even guys on that coaching staff, like hundreds of hours a week, or like 100 hours a week, just watching film and going through review and trying to evaluate the players in your football team. There's a lot that goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
And with that said, and this goes back to what I was talking about, in which that's where you have to draw the line and figure out if it's the coach or it's the player. And what has the issue been for the longest time now, spanning for the last 3 to 4 years? Whether and you can blame this on the head coach, who is the play caller, from a schematic perspective, and you can do that too, because there's legitimacy in that aspect as well. But what has been the most common thing that we have complained about when it comes to these wide receivers? That they have that they tend to have a difficult time getting open. And when are those times? When are those times that it's difficult for them to get open? Man coverage, when they go up against competent defenses and competent defensive coordinators that have been doing this for a long time, to know the strengths and weaknesses of a skill position group that they're facing. And you've seen it on full display multiple times throughout the year, where sometimes even Quez had a hard time beating man. There's receivers that a lot of receivers are going to have that difficulty. I think Devontae Smith at times struggled, but it didn't bother him as much because he's already a good route runner. He already knows how to get himself open instead of relying solely on the scheme to scheme him open. Smith has the capability, he has the skill to do it for himself instead of that extra reliance on a scheme to put him in that position to begin with. And unfortunately, the same can't be said for other receivers on this roster, and that's ultimately one of the biggest cruxes of this issue right now when we're trying to evaluate the talent that we have at the wide receiver position. So, I mean, I don't know. That's what makes me question the I guess that makes me question like the legitimacy of how good of a wide receivers coach Aaron Moorhead is. Like, what sense could you make? What sense do you make out of that?
Yeah, again, I agree with you on that as well. I just don't think Aaron Moorhead is the right guy for the job. Especially, I mean, there's also speculation we are going to be getting a veteran wide receiver, which will really help with the potential of these young wide receivers because this is 100% true. Our wide receiver core is extremely young. One is a rookie. One I think no, not even one, two. Two are in their second year, I believe. Yeah, they're in their second year. And then JJ Arcega-Whiteside, I believe he was drafted 2019, so his third year. That is extremely young, right? So having a veteran there will help, but even if a veteran comes in here, I still think we need to find a better wide receiver coach, not Aaron Moorhead. Because right now, the potential, while some, aka Devontae and Quez, are showing flashes of potential, like we keep saying, there's still some holes on this wide receiver core. As much as I hate to say it, because we've been working on this for a while. Like, think about it. We drafted J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, even though it wasn't, a first-round pick over DK Metcalf, by the way. For our first-round pick in 2020, I'm forgetting the years, and I'm pretty sure was that year, we got Jalen Reagor first round. And for the 10th pick, we got Devontae Smith. We've been focusing a lot on receivers these past drafts, and some of them are just not developing like we wanted them to, and Aaron Moorhead deserves some of the blame for that. So, yeah, I'm completely with you on that.
So, with that said, do you put more of an emphasis on the fact that this receiving group does not have a veteran leader to fall back on in terms of having that extra chunk of wisdom on the field, because we know the coaches can't hold the players' hands. They're there to bring them along. They're there to make them a better player, and it's up to said player to carry out their responsibilities in that right, in improving and showing the improvement of just playing better football on the field. So do you think it's more along the lines of the lack of a extra veteran presence, or is this is this a scenario, or is this a scenario right now where it's just like Aaron has to work with what he has and he still has a job to do?
I think both of them have a huge impact, but like right now, I'm gonna say the lack of a veteran wide receiver. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
I like the young wide receiver core. I like the young guys. That shows a lot of potential for the future. But even though I do like the young wide receiver core, there still needs to be at least one veteran in there. I mean, just the young guys. And I know Devontae Smith is already showing he's going to be a very good wide receiver in the future. I would not mind, him learning from a veteran wide receiver. It'd make it even more better, in my opinion. And that'll also, help the other players like Quez Watkins. Even if we, even though Quez, like I said, works more as, in my opinion, should work more as, deep threat guy. And what if we get, a 50-50 guy, like we were talking about in, I think Eagles Uncensored had a stream. I believe I was in it, and they were talking about, if we should get a veteran wide receiver who can catch anything. Like if you throw it to him, then he will obviously catch it, and no matter if he's draped in coverage or not. Even so, I mean, I still think that puts, I still think that helps Quez a lot. And as much as I hate to say it, even though I don't want Rager on this team anymore, you know, um, and it might even, honestly, it might even help Rager too. And I doubt he's going to be on this roster, but you never know, right? So right now, I think the emphasis is more on getting a veteran wide receiver. How we get on it right now. Calvin Ridley, I mean, also there are also other 50-50 guys as well as Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, like I keep saying. But, Calvin Ridley also works out too. Any of those guys, Howie should immediately spend money on, right? I mean, it's obviously going to be expensive, but will it be worth it? Heck yes, to, help this wide receiver core. And also, I don't think I even mentioned Jalen Hurts in this. I think I mentioned it once, but that also helps Jalen Hurts too. He's developing as a passer, and if we develop him into a better passer and get him weapons, and of course we keep our run game good with Hurts tied into that, you cannot tell me that won't be a dangerous offense. I'm not even joking. If we get a veteran wide receiver to help this wide receiver core, that's weapons for Hurts. As long as well as our run game, which is our bread and butter, we can be really good on both aspects of the offense. So right now, I mean, Aaron Moorhead's still not let off the hook though. I'm just saying, like right now, we need an emphasis on a veteran wide receiver, and then Howie, or I believe Howie makes all of the coaching, or maybe it's Sirianni. I'm not so sure, because he is the head coach. But whoever's in charge of all of these assistant coaches and all of them, you got to make a decision quick if you want to keep Aaron Moorhead, if you don't. But you have to do this. You have to get a veteran wide receiver. So, yeah, it has to be that.
Yeah, I mean, we've already witnessed and we already understand the impact that Darius Slay has.
Exactly.
We already know what Darius Slay has meant to this secondary and how much better he made it alone just for having his presence on that side of the ball. And that's one thing that this receiver group does not benefit from. Now, they don't benefit from it directly because it's the opposite side of the football. But where they do benefit from it is, I remember Devontae Smith talking about this at one point in time, where where Slay makes the receivers better is that he can give these guys hints on what he thinks a receiver what a receiver is going to do in formation based and how he would cover them, and that's where the benefit comes from corner to receiver in that regard. But when there's nobody on the squad where it's receiver to receiver, then it affects them. Then it affects them negatively. There's a negative effect there because you don't got somebody to fall back on to carry you through certain situations. The Eagles receiver core doesn't have that type of guy that they can benefit from the way the secondary does in Darius Slay, because I have to imagine that Slay made Avonte Maddox a better corner, and and him working with Steven Nelson, even though Steven Nelson's a veteran in his own right, I have to imagine Slay helped him get a little bit better, and and anybody else in that group when it comes to coverage, and whether he's working with the safeties, or like Marcus Epps, or like Marcus Epps working on his coverage skills, or Kayvon Wallace, or even working with Rodney McLeod and giving him and letting him brainstorm a little bit, stuff like that. The receiver core doesn't have that kind of player, and sometimes people don't have a true understanding on how much of a detriment that is to a young receiver core that's really learning on their own as they go, and it elevates that level even more when the quarterback is learning with them at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You make a really good point on Slay. On the other side of the ball, helping out in the corners as well. And again, you cannot tell me Avonte Maddox had a bad year. No, he had a pretty good year this year. He had a really good job staying on guys. I believe he also got a pick this year as well. I mean, I think that was on the against the Raiders. Honestly, by the way, Coastline, good friend of mine, is actually a Raiders fan, so he does remember our game this year. At the start of the game, Derek Carr did get picked off by Avonte Maddox, even though that was more tipped on the wide receiver. But even so, that's still a pick for Avonte, even if the wide receiver could not catch it. He still had a pretty good year this year, can't even lie. Steven Nelson, though, really disappointing. But even so, he's a veteran. Slay was also helping him out as well, including Rodney McLeod and the safeties, like you said, right? Getting somebody for the wide receiver core, that works as Slay, really, really good. Obviously a really good player on the field, but off the field, helping those wide receivers, that would be massive. So obviously we can't really see inside the front office. I'm pretty sure they don't just anybody in there. So we do not know if Howie is if Howie's really thinking about this. He better be thinking about this, because Howie. Okay, you might disagree with this, but Howie has had a good year this year. For as much hate as we get on him, this year he kind of redeemed himself. Has he fully redeemed himself? I'll say we have to see this draft, because you already know what happens. But even so, he still had a pretty good draft this year, actually. So he just needs to continue with the good work, right? And
it's like I'm not gonna give you your credit for saving me if you're the one who tried to drown me. That's I think that's the correct analogy to use here, for what Howie has done in terms of like the roster management, and how negatively some of these previous drafts have worked out for the Eagles, minus this last draft class, because I think every single player that was drafted in the previous class has gotten some snaps on the football field, and they're making progress. So that's how in part, that you had a successful draft, when these players that you're picking up are good enough to make some sort of impact in landing a spot on the roster to be granted snaps and playing in a regular season game. Even if it's just special teams, they're still making it onto the football field. And that's what makes up a successful draft sometimes. But can Howie continue to dig himself back out of the hole that he created and do this back to back? That's yet to be seen. So before we get into the last couple of subjects here, and we already have hit the hour mark, and that's what happens when you get into a good depth of conversation. Time flies when you're having fun, and it looks like we're doing it on the channel here in back-to-back nights, and Nightinqs is doing a good job. You give credit where credit's due. He's doing a good job so far, and again, appreciate it. Appreciate you for coming on and having your first collaboration with me. And like I said, before we get into the last couple of subjects, and we have some newer things to address here that we will go over in this episode. And before we get to that, again, we hit the hour mark, so I gotta let everybody know, big thanks for sticking around here, as the attendance has stayed at a consistent of anywhere from 1 to 3 people, and any viewership is positive viewership. So thank you guys, and again, do not forget to pay a visit over to Nightinqs channel, where he advertises Nightinqs Sports and gives his perspectives on things just the way that other Eagles content do. That's the part of the uniqueness to our channels, man. Everybody's opinions at one point is going to be different. So yeah, don't be afraid to give a quick click and go over and check out Nightinqs for Nightinqs Sports and the Just Arrival podcast that he has with Football Talk with Benny. So
Thank you so much.
we're going to get into the last couple of subjects here. As Lucas Hallman, good to see you, man. He says, "How about Embiid?" Yeah, that game was ridiculous, and I did mean to bring that up and give the Sixers fans some love. From a Mavericks fan, and witnessing the just monstrous game that Embiid had against the Orlando Magic, putting up, I think, 50 and 14 in only 27 minutes. That type of dominance is hard to find, and yeah, while I can clown on that a little bit and say that that's the same Magic team that my Mavericks have destroyed already, so I'm not surprised. But again, we still have to carry the same mentality from the NFL to the NBA and say that anybody can beat anybody, and bad teams do not beat good teams, or bad teams don't beat bad teams, and you still have to defeat the opponent that's in front of you. So at the end of the at the end of the day, Embiid still had the game that he did. So props to him, and happy night for Sixers fans and witnessing even more greatness. But the only thing that I ask the Sixers to do from a Mavericks fan is a little bit of what we're going through right now with the experimentation with new head coach Jason Kidd and Luka getting locked up on his 5-year deal. Get Embiid some help, please. Can Daryl Morey just please do that for Embiid? Get the man some damn help, okay? It can't be that hard. I don't know why 25 is still on the roster. That sort of thing. It's ridiculous to this point that it takes this much effort out of Embiid, playing at an MVP caliber level, and you don't have enough depth around him where he doesn't have to carry the team every single night. That's not how you build a roster. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. So that's my little rant on that, coming from a Mavericks fan, because I've been saying that for the last few years. And while I still have faith in Porzingis succeeding, I just need him to stay healthy, because when the Mavericks are on top of their game, they are very good. They are very good, but there's still players on that squad that are taking up a roster spot, and I don't want them anymore. I don't know why they haven't gotten rid of them yet, but that's not the here nor there again. So yeah, of course, Coastline, we're not done yet. We got 2 more things to take care of here. We definitely do. We got 2 more things to take care of. So in terms of, well, we're going to end on a little more of a speculative, more positive note. We're going to end it. We're going to end it on that. So I'm going to save that topic for last. But here we go. And I don't think you know where I'm going with this, Nightinqs, but you may have a little bit of an idea as I start it. So it was said today that Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon has now concluded 3 different interviews for a head coaching position between the Minnesota Vikings, so coincidental, the Houston Texans, and the Chicago Bears. Now, with it saying that those interviews were concluded, and nothing was said about him getting a second interview. And in terms of head coach, like head coaching candidates, I think they go through multiple. I think the way it works is that if they go through more than one interview with a football team, that's how you know that there's intrigue that's sparked from said organization. So knowing what we know at the moment, and him only getting a single interview from 3 of these teams who are in search of a head coach, being that the Texans got rid of David Culley, the Vikings got rid of Mike Zimmer, and the Bears got rid of Matt Nagy. How do you like where are you in the current situation with these interviews being carried out for Jonathan Gannon? What kind of meaning do you get out of any of this? And lastly, do you expect him to be the defensive coordinator in 2022?
And when you said Jonathan Gannon, I knew exactly you were going with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I already have that answer. The meaning I have behind this is my thoughts on it basically to start off, and then you didn't specifically ask for it, but just really quickly, my thoughts on this. I know this is the obvious choice. A lot of Eagles fans have been really, really frustrated with what Gannon has produced in the defense this year, and I absolutely do not blame them. I think this is a good idea that Gannon should be shipped off to another team. That seems really harsh considering the first year, but you got to think about it. Because, first of all, really quick, the defensive line, that's something people have been complaining about how he's not been aggressive on defensive line. Again, he doesn't call a blitz. I mean, he obviously has, but he barely calls blitzes. And with this defensive line, I mean, I could go on. Even though Fletcher Cox has been having a disappointing year, him on that defensive line alongside Javon Hargrave, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, even though he got a season-ending injury. Derek Barnett, I don't want to talk about Derek Barnett. But, even with that defensive line, that's not a defensive line you don't take seriously. And he didn't take it seriously. He never called blitzes whatsoever. And with that dangerous of a defensive line, that makes me extremely angry because it's like, you have this, really great thing you have and you just don't harness its potential, and then it's just useless. I'm not saying the defensive line is useless. I'm just saying, not using it right is just making it useless. Right? And also, he did not play aggressive defense. He had soft zone coverage defense that got picked apart, especially in that Bucks, but especially by that Bucks offense with Tom Brady and company. The first Bucks game in the regular season, Hunter. Okay, I'm gonna have to shout out Hunter Doyle from the Philly Insider podcast. You obviously know his name. He said, you were in that stream, I think. Well, I think it was the Eagles Bucks preview. I think it was a call. I think he said it in the call, but Jonathan Gannon, 83% of the time called zone, and what did Tom Brady do? He absolutely picked us apart. I don't care if he got picked off in that game. He just picked our defense apart, basically. That's just the only way I can say it. And for the Bucks game and the wild card that happened a week ago, or not even a week ago, I don't even know, a few days ago even, we also got picked apart there. So, I mean, this soft defense from Jonathan Gannon, I'm absolutely hating it. And the worst thing about it, I'm actually kind of missing Jim Schwartz. I could not believe I'm saying that. I could not believe I'm saying that. I said kind of. I said kind of. I don't completely miss Jim Schwartz. But the way Gannon has been doing his defense, it's just been extremely frustrating. Like, do I want Jim Schwartz back entirely? No. But he did some things better than Gannon. I mean, you have to admit that. I mean, that is like really, really bold for me to say. And from your reaction, you thought it was pretty bold too. Not gonna lie. But I'm done with Gannon today. I'm just saying. I'm just saying this year. I would like. I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm not saying Jim Schwartz should entirely be back. Now he's like he was good to start, but then he in his last years here he completely sucked. Like I definitely agree with that. But to vouch for me a little bit, Philly Sports Talk Podcast said this. If you know Robert from Philly Sports Talk Podcast, if you know any of you guys know him in the chat, he also said he kind of missed Jim Schwartz a little bit. And personally, me, I don't blame him. It's just the way Jonathan Gannon does defense. I want somebody more aggressive than that. I think, in my opinion, our defense, especially the defensive line, works very well aggressively. And that's the question. I remember I said in a stream where you were in the call that, I prefer Vic Fangio and Mike Zimmer. You said you didn't want Mike Zimmer, but what about Vic Fangio? What are your thoughts on Vic Fangio? You don't want him?
I would love Vic Fangio, but I'm only concerned to the fact that he is primarily a 3-4 front, and even and he has to. I mean, a lot of this is speculatory right now because we have no idea what the Eagles are going to do in terms of their coaching staff, just based on the answers that Sirianni gave at his press conference, and him already blessing the idea that he likes the coaching staff that he has in place. And while most of us don't agree with that, solely based on one person, I think it's more than one person personally. But in that respect, now let me ask you this. You bring up Jim Schwartz, and I knew at some point that it was going to be said. So, in terms of Jonathan Gannon as the defensive coordinator, we understand that he was a first-year D coordinator at this position, and he was a secondaries coach. As a secondaries coach at one point, between the Colts and the Minnesota Vikings, we get all that. But Jonathan Gannon has to a certain extent suffered from the same issues schematically, and this isn't a word, so I have to say it different. But Jonathan Gannon has suffered in two ways here, similar to Jim Schwartz. One, they were both too conservative at times, and two, the other thing that we had an issue with is the fact that they were limited to what they can do based on the personnel that they were given. Now, where do you take that in terms of Jonathan Gannon? Do you think that it's solely based on his overall experience at coordinating a defense? Does the lack of talent from a personnel perspective have anything to do with that, or is it a combination of both?
I don't know if it's really the lack of talent on the personnel. Like I've already said, the defensive line. I mean, it's really, in my opinion, I think it's a really good defensive line, despite.
Okay, now take the defensive line out of the equation and look at the linebackers, look at the safeties.
Okay. Now you bring up a good point. I wasn't saying your point was bad from before. I was just saying now that you're talking about the linebackers. Okay, now you have a good point, right? Because the linebackers, okay, I'll definitely agree with you there that the linebackers are, that's our weakest link on the defense, right? And that's something we need to think about in the draft. All right, yeah, that's on my bad. I was going based on depth. I was going entirely based on defensive line, and you do have a good point on linebackers.
Because
that's a problem.
I mean, yeah, and not to cut you off, but there's a little bit there's a little bit of a realistic attitude here when I say it in a means of there is a dependency on talent at the skill positions, and sometimes it does limit what a D coordinator can do schematically. Like there's going to be limitations in place, and there's times where a D coordinator can only do so much because he doesn't have the players to carry out certain assignments, and either that the skill sets do not match. Like for instance, how often was it said that Jonathan Gannon was not playing a guy like Josh Sweat right? That they felt Josh Sweat was not being put in good positions, or the over reliance of Alex Singleton in coverage, or sending him on blitzes and it didn't work a whole lot, or dropping a safety down with no help on the back end, and leaving corners on islands, and stuff that I'm talking about also stems from Jim Schwartz's tenure because he suffered from the same thing. So, and this isn't to defend and make excuses for Jonathan Gannon, but I'm trying to shed another light in the face of legitimacy, that this is one thing that D coordinators have. This is another thing that D coordinators unfortunately have to work with. And it's not a fault of their own, but again, on the flip side, you have to work with what you have sometimes, and that's where a lot of the inexperience reared its ugly head with Gannon, through his experimentation of trying different things with these skill players and them being out of position, if that makes any sense.
That is fair. That is fair. I cannot disagree with that. You bring up a really good point on that. And like you said, defensive coordinators have to work with a guy. And you bring up a good point. You bring up a good point. And I'm not disagreeing with that. It seems like I don't know if we really like entirely disagree on this issue. There's just some a little bit more thought on
Yeah,
the person.
because and I will add this as well, because there's a difference when a player where a player can elevate what a D coordinator can do schematically, and then it works vice versa. Like like Todd Bowles, for example, what he is able to do. And I mean, people think of him as a defensive genius. Some people think of Bill Belichick as a defensive genius, and so on and so forth. And even the good D coordinators that the Eagles have had in their past, that we wish that we can resurrect them back into Jonathan Gannon's spot right now. And you can also look at it from those lines too. Like, how often have we asked for when we didn't have a good corner, like a Jalen Ramsey type of corner, when we didn't have Darius Slay? Or how often have we asked for a Bobby Wagner or a Hassan Reddick, for like guys that can elevate the players around them as a captain, so to speak, and give somebody the D coordinator can lean on and say, well, you know what? Because I have this guy and because I have that guy, I can scheme some different looks here. I can open the book up a little bit and be able to try this and see if I can confuse the quarterback. I think based on that, and based on Gannon's inexperience as a D coordinator, he was very limited to what he could do from a defensive standpoint.
Yeah, that is a really good point. Now that shows me another light. And again, his experience as a D is inexperience rather. Sorry, of as a D coordinator his first year. Yeah, that is a pretty good point. Obviously, he still has his flaws. Like, I mean, obviously, a lot of Eagles fans have been saying the flaws he's had. I've listed some of them out, but yeah, that brings up like a good question with all of those, those point of views and those ideas colliding. Should we give him another chance next year? Maybe, we just need to build up the defense. Better. He needs more experience. Give him another year, stuff like that. Or do we entirely scrap him and get an aggressive, defensive coordinator? Now that has got me thinking. Because if you think about it, if we do fire him, then again we have to go into the defensive coordinator search, right? And candidates include I only two I know of now. I know there's obviously like more than two, like even 3 or 4, such like that. But the ones that stand out a lot are Vic Fangio and Mike Zimmer. Obviously, Mike Zimmer, former head coach of the Vikings. I believe I think it was defensive coordinator even for the Cowboys. I remember. Yeah, he's been a defensive coordinator in the past. I remember seeing him there. Vic Fangio, I'm not really informed about his history, as a defense coordinator, if he, even is one. But we do know former head coach of the Broncos. So
Well, he's the same guy that had the Dallas Cowboys down 30-0 in the regular season, and said he had the blueprint to stop them.
a good point.
That Vic Fangio.
Be good. He worked really close as a defensive coordinator there if he can do that to the Cowboys. I'm just saying. But yeah.
Well, it's still his defense, yeah.
Yeah, he's a good defensive mind. I wouldn't mind him coming here to Philadelphia. And obviously both of the Dallas, the him holding down 30 to Dallas. I mean, I know that was like, a little reference to our rivalry and such, but not as in general. Good defensive mind. I'd like him here. And if he's aggressive, then I really like him here. But yeah, good talk. Yeah, even though we have a little bit of a different viewpoint, even though like you didn't entirely disagree with me, this is still a good conversation on if we should. Fangio was a defensive coordinator on the 49ers and Jim Harbaugh as well. Oh, interesting. All right, so he's under Jim Harbaugh's system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and me bringing up these examples and looking a little bit outside the box, so to speak. This is not me advocating that that I want Jonathan Gannon to stay as the defensive coordinator, but I'm also I'm just trying to say that it's not entirely his fault, because as we remember, Jim Schwartz suffered from the same thing. But we only had a little more faith in Jim Schwartz because he's a been there, done that type of coach. And that was the biggest advantage between Schwartz and Gannon. Even though their defensive concepts are very similar, Schwartz has a lot more experience than Gannon does. And, that's why some people miss Schwartz over Gannon. Because, we couldn't stand that picket fence, bend, don't break defense that Schwartz did a little too much because, part of it was warranted and some of it wasn't. There was times where he didn't trust his corners on the back end to get the job done. Sometimes there was cases where the defensive line was not getting home to pressure the quarterback. Sometimes he just didn't have the talent at the linebacker spot. All of that is true. And a lot of that was similarly true to what Jonathan Gannon was working with. But that doesn't absolve him from his failures. And I'm just trying to point out some other considerations to make when before you completely hold Gannon's feet to the fire, so to speak. But I'll give Schwartz this. When he was the mentality of live by the blitz, die by the blitz, and almost every time when he dialed up a blitz when it really mattered, it worked. Gannon does not have that ability, and it's not necessarily a fault to his own because of the inexperience, of course. But again, Schwartz and Gannon had similar struggles when it comes to talent with the personnel that they have to work with. So with that said, final verdict: Jonathan Gannon staying or going? You are with you are saying that he is going to go.
Yeah, I mean, even with the point you said, which I mean, I'm not disregarding whatsoever. You bring up a really good point on how Schwartz and Gannon had similar, similar problems, but even in his first year, I honestly, with the head coaching interviews he has right now, this is obviously not going to be his end to the NFL whatsoever. I mean, I still think he gets a head coaching job to either one of those three, or of course, still a coaching job in the NFL. You never know.
Yeah.
But honestly, even if we do let him go, best of luck to him. But I'm sorry, I can't continue with Gannon. I know they had the similar problems, but that's just my verdict. I just need somebody more aggressive. That's right. And Schwartz was aggressive on the defensive line, but we need somebody more aggressive. That's my verdict.
Yeah, so I think we're on the same page here that neither of us want Gannon back in to have a second year with the Eagles as a defensive coordinator. And well, you know, and the only other thing that I can bring up is depending on who the coordinator is next year, no matter what, this team, these players are going to have to learn yet another new type of defense, and that's one drawback that we're going to have to work with. However, if it's a defense that better suits the talent that we have on this roster already, then we may as well be better off. But until that point, we can only speculate what we know and what we don't know. Same with these head coaching interviews for Gannon.
Yep.
And so, with us closing in on the projected finishing time for the stream here, I kind of wanted it to aim around the hour and a half mark, and we both have similar time crunches right now, and being that AK and I almost went for 3 hours yesterday, don't want to keep the theme of that continuing on, because we can only be repetitive for so long in terms of topics. But what we do know now in the latest news is that we have an official schedule for next year's 2022 regular season, and I will bring that up on screen right now for anybody that has not noticed it, for anybody that has not seen it yet on Twitter. But the Eagles have posted this today. So, as we all know, we play our division rivals at home and away, so we can cross those teams off the list. But we got some new teams on here, and it's going to look pretty interesting next year. So we'll start with our home games at the link first. Green Bay Packers are coming to the link. Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they're more of the Jacksonville Kittens right now. So I don't think there's anything necessarily to worry about with them, unless they have a strong emphasis on building around Trevor Lawrence. They got a long way to go. Minnesota Vikings will eventually have a new head coach. They're coming to town. Like I said, with the Jacksonville Jaguars, they'll have a new head coach. The New Orleans Saints will have they may have a new quarterback, so we don't know how their team is going to look. I don't think they're going to completely put their faith in Taysom Hill or Trevor Siemian for that matter, or maybe not even Jameis Winston. There's, and I mentioned this before when we talked about Jalen Hurts yesterday, AK and I, that it's our situation's being taken for granted right now because a lot of these other teams are worse off in terms of searching for a quarterback because their issues span a lot farther than ours do. I mean, I brought up the Cleveland Browns with the Baker Mayfield situation. We just talked about Jacksonville needing a quarterback. We just talked about the Saints needing a quarterback. And again, another home game. Pittsburgh Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger is retiring. They need a quarterback. And then we go to the away games, and after seeing the Tennessee Titans, and the Titans will, for the most part, they'll remain the same. So that's going to be a tough game. Let's hope that we get our vengeance on Tennessee from 2018. So we look at our away games. Kyler Murray just had a terrible playoff appearance in the wild card against the Rams. So we have to go back to Arizona again, and who knows? Maybe Jalen gets his vengeance on Kyler Murray in one of Jalen's very first starts in his career, where he was fantastic in that game. Let us not remember that. That was one of the best games of Jalen Hurts' career that he played from a quarterback standpoint. It was. And yeah, while it could be a broken record that we're still going back to it, but still, maybe Hurts gets his revenge against Kyler Murray by going back to Arizona. We're already not worried about the division rivals. We know that story by now. Again, Chicago Bears, they're going to be looking. I don't know if I don't really know if they're going to be looking for a quarterback, because it's going to, they were such a mess over there with Matt Nagy and him getting fired, and then, them having two veteran quarterbacks on the roster with Justin Fields. I have no idea what their future is looking like right now. That's up in the air. The Detroit Lions are the Detroit Lions. That's another team of kittens, even though they play hard to bite off kneecaps. They didn't do that against us because we just curb stomped them. Houston Texans, another team in need of a quarterback, another team in need of a head coach. And with all the drama centered around the Indianapolis Colts right now with Carson Wentz and Frank Reich, who knows what their team is going to look like. So this is, to me, this is a very favorable schedule, minus some of the obvious looking playoff caliber teams. What do you take out of seeing our opponents for next season?
I'm really confident for this next season. Actually, you see a lot of teams who, like you said, are doubtful at quarterback. Like you even said, I'll sound the ones you said. Jaguars, Saints. Jameis did get injured early in the season. Steelers. Who else? Bears. I think they're set on Andy Dalton, Justin Fields. But Texans, like you said, and also the Colts. I thought who's Chris. I think Chris Ballard is his name for the GM. There's speculation about Carson Wentz being QB1 of the Colts. There, did you hear
that? Yeah, I did. They didn't necessarily commit to him.
Exactly. So that's gonna be interesting there. But if Carson Wentz stays, now, that is not gonna be in the link. Imagine if this game was at the link. That would definitely be really high intensity. But 2018, since we played the Colts. It was either week two or three. They went to the link, so we have to go to Lucas Oil Stadium.
Anyway, yeah, that was week 3, because that was Carson's. That was the game Carson came back from his ACL injury.
Oh, dang! Right, so there's there's more connection to that, right? And his return in 2018, the team he was playing against would be his future team that he's on right now. So the more you know, right? So I'm still confident about this. Like, for division rivals, even though you didn't go too much in that, I don't know if we can sweep Dallas. Honestly, I'm not really confident sweeping Dallas. I think we split. We swept Washington this year, and if we have a better team, I honestly think we have the ability to sweep Washington this year. And for the Giants, really stupid that we split against them. We should have honestly split. Well, I said we were going to split against them, before season. I didn't really think we would sweep any of our division rivals, which we did Washington. But I think we have the ability to sweep the Giants here as well. So division rivals, I'm confident about that. Now, just really quick analysis of each of them. Packers, I don't. I even with speculation of Aaron Rodgers leaving. I mean, I think he's staying, honestly. If Aaron Rodgers is staying, I'm not really confident about the Packers. Jaguars, really confident. They're looking completely lost right now. Their head coach was an absolute jerk. He's fired. They're going to have to find a new head coach. They're going to build around Lawrence. The Vikings. This is an interesting one because Vikings have our number in the regular season. I know the last time we played them, it was in Minneapolis.
2019.
2019. Yeah, that was a terrible
Yep.
game for us. I remember watching that game, and yeah, I mean, obviously there's history with the Vikings coming to the link. You obviously know NFC Championship. Oh, those two words, you already know the history behind
Mhm.
that. But I mean, like even though it's a little harsh to say, I mean that was 2018. Now it's now, and then the Vikings, and that was in the playoffs too. Vikings in the regular season, they have our numbers, so that's a toss-up game for me. I don't really know what to say of that game. Saints, we have the Saints again, and that's completely fine. We even despite that playoff loss, which I do not even want to mention, you know, in the regular season, from that game, ever since we beat the Saints and we beat them this year, we beat them pretty convincingly.
Oh yeah, we've had the Saints number for for the last couple of years now. Yeah, definitely.
Good season, yeah, that's why I'm confident about it. And the number one rush defense in both of those games of regular season, and we absolutely ran right through them. That shows that we could easily beat the run defense. I'm confident about that. Steelers, they're going to have questions at quarterback. Even so with Big Ben, I mean, Steelers offense, I'll admit, I've heard a lot of Steelers fans' opinions on Matt Canada, their offensive coordinator, being terrible with Big Ben, retiring. I'm really confident about this game. I think I see this as a win. Tennessee Titans, though, I know right now, I mean, this is next season. We don't know what they'll look like next season, but they have Derrick Henry right now back for the playoffs, and the game Derrick Henry, now that is, we didn't face Derrick Henry in our match against 2018. The ending to that game was just, I don't want to talk about it either. But with Derrick Henry here, and the importance of linebackers in this upcoming draft, now that is a key matchup to look out for because our tackling this season was absolutely atrocious. We couldn't tackle anybody this season. Missed tackles left and right. And keep in mind, we're facing Derrick Henry in this game.
Oh, they're definitely going to roll out the red carpet for their majesty to just run over everybody through that defensive line. It's there's almost no stopping them. Really, there isn't.
Yeah, if we miss tackles, every single game, then what makes us think we can stop Derrick Henry? That's just the truth. He's Derrick Henry.
I mean, King Henry allows everything to happen for that Titans offense. And, because of that, sometimes sometimes these D coordinators do underestimate Ryan Tannehill. Let's be fair. It's not like Tannehill is a bum. And, when he gets underestimated because of how good Derrick Henry is, Tannehill has the ability to throw. He has the ability to throw the football and light you up. I mean, he's done it with he's done it with AJ Brown. He tried to do it with Julio Jones, and Julio couldn't stay healthy. And that three-headed monster that he had at receiver over there. And I mean, Tannehill is pretty darn capable, but the main engine of that offense is Derrick Henry as long as he's on that football field. So we already know we're going to be in for a tough one when the Titans come to the link, no doubt.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Tannehill is pretty slept on. I'm like you said, I have to admit. He also has weapons, even though Julio Jones doesn't stay healthy. Bottom line is, we definitely cannot underestimate this Titans team. They're looking really good, and even though right now it is still playoffs, we'll have to see. Obviously, have to see how the season ends here, and if they keep continuing on, with Derrick Henry coming back, we have to see their first game in the playoffs, even because they had a bye. But even so, I'm not really confident about this game. This is going to be one of the. Right now, I'm saying like 11 wins, so like 6 losses. Like right now. I mean, it's not final.
Okay.
I'm just thinking 11 wins right now, but we'll have to see how both rosters go on. But right now, this is one of my losses. But again, this is not final. We'll have to think about it. So I already said, the division rivals, Arizona. Yeah, Arizona this playoffs and at the end of the season, yeah, they look really bad. They started out 7-0. You already know, and they had that collapse where they finished. How much did they finish? They either had 10 or 11 wins, so somewhere around along those lines. So they only won about 3 or 4 games after that and lost the majority at the stretch, the ending stretch of the season. Not really ending stretch, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I mean, this is going to be a revenge game for Jalen Hurts. By the way, if you know that rushing touchdown he scored that tied the game up, I called that game. And if you do know my intro, that little snippet of me calling a game,
Yes, I do. Yeah,
that
I
is
remember
that is that touchdown. If you guys didn't know, so yeah.
that.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
people like it. So I just want to say that. But yeah, this
So
is Hurts' revenge game. Yeah.
yeah, so before we close the show out here, and we'll get one more thing. I'll ask one more thing and get it out of the way since we did a little bit of a deeper analysis with the home games instead of the away games. But out of the away games, not counting the division rivals, I mean, do you see any of those teams as going into a really hostile territory, or do you feel that we will have the presence that the Eagles will have the presence behind them, to where they can silence the home crowd pretty easily? Do you see any of those teams there that are that their territory is really all that hostile? Because I don't. Maybe Arizona out of all of them, but everybody else, no, I'm not afraid.
Not really. I'm not afraid of what's the first name? Soldier Field. Yeah, got it. Soldier Field.
Yeah.
Passing Stadium. Will it bring energy? I guess yeah, it'll bring the energy. Will it scare us? No, I'm not scared. Ford Field, I'm not scared. Stadium. If you know my boy Mana of Sports Talk, big Houston Texans fan. No respect to you at all, but your team and your stadium right now, I don't think it'll scare us. I think we'll be dominant. I'm sorry. I'm just saying. I'm just saying that, right?
Yeah, yeah, and obviously we're not going to say that we're going into any of these games scared either, because if that's the case, you might as well forget about winning that football game. But it's I mean in the I think what I was trying to say there is like the strength of the opponent more so us
Oh,
going in there afraid that we're going to lose, in that respect. And I think that's a little safer to say, and it makes more sense. But yeah,
oh,
yeah, and why do I? And I'm not trying to make a record prediction right now, but I'm just gonna say I'm just gonna say one. I'm gonna be speculative about it. Why do I feel that this schedule has 12-5 written all over it? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. That's just me. I see us sweeping. I don't know. As of right now, and of course, of course, it's way too early, and I'm not trying to count my chickens, but as of right now, it's like we can sweep both Washington and the Giants. We'll probably split with Dallas. We'll probably split with Dallas this time. And, Green Bay, Tennessee, um, Arizona, eh.
yeah.
So I mean that's what, four. I think that's four that I counted. So one, two, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so if there's a fifth one in there, if there's a fifth one in there, I thought about either Minnesota or the Saints, and I would probably have to lean towards the Saints on that one, because their defense has been a lot more consistent than Minnesota's. Minnesota's defense hasn't been the same for quite some time. So if anything, this is if anything at this moment in time, based on how our team looks, of course, and I'm being very speculative, and it sounds very biased and pro Eagles and whatever else you want to call it, but it's
Yeah.
entertainment right now. But
Yep.
as it stands, with the current state of these teams, this looks like 12-5 or 13-4. I mean, flat out, flat out. Let's be honest there. But no, we can't make any. Like, come on, no, we can't make any record predictions right now. We have no idea how these teams are going to look towards next. How these teams are going to look by the start of next season. We have no idea. But unfortunately, it has come to the time where we conclude this presentation of episode 5 for Touchdown Talk with myself, Lindy Endzone, and this evening's guest being Nightinqs for the first time on my channel. And man, we lasted almost 2 hours here, and we probably could have went 2 hours, but yeah, we both had some time crunches here, and it's good to have a little bit of cushion beforehand, so we can get ourselves prepared and finish out our nights and do what we have to do and stuff like that. But for a first time collaboration on my channel, I would have to say that we're both pretty satisfied on how this turned out.
Yeah, this is a really fun stream. Thank you to everybody, came to chat. Joe Castro for a little bit, Big Play Slave, BLSG, Coastline, Coach, Lucas, Word Gang Media. I think I'm missing somebody. Oh, Mamuchi as well. Yeah, a lot of people went in. Let's see the like. I believe you got 9 likes, almost double digits. I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. I mean, I take I take a little pride in the fact that other content creators in this community are reaching out and like, hey, if you want to do something, and with it being on my channel or your channel or whoever's channel, it's always good to have new experiences, new opinions to throw around and converse with, and that's a part of what makes this, that's a part of what makes this a different experience outside of the real world, where not only are we providing entertainment for those that want to support us, but we're getting to know people from across the country here in the virtual world, so to speak, and to come together just for liking the same football team. It has been great. So I'm very grateful for any kind of opportunity of that nature. So with that, again, I do thank you, Nightinqs, for reaching out and wanting to be a part of my Touchdown Talk series of episodes. And we're going to keep this going tomorrow once again. Like I said, y'all, 3 episodes this week of Touchdown Talk, and it continues tomorrow. Episode 6 will be featuring Hunter Doyle from the Philly Insider Podcast. I'm excited for that one. It has been a long time since Hunter and I have had a one-on-one discussion, and I can't wait for that one. And I did have I did have a bit of an idea for an episode 7, but I don't know where it's at right now. But based on that, if anyone wants to be a part of a Touchdown Talk episode and wanting to do some work with yours truly, content creators, let me know. I would like to keep this series going. But for that conclusion, this has been episode 5. Nightinqs, once again, thank you for being a part of this with me. For myself, Lindy Endzone, again, do not hesitate to give a quick click in checking out Nightinqs' channel for Nightinqs Sports and his dedicated podcast with Football Talk with Benny of Just a Rival, where an Eagles content creator and a Giants content creator go at it, talk about each other's teams, their current state, any other involvement with other related teams to theirs in the NFL. So do give him a quick click and check out his channel as you just came onto my channel to watch this presentation. And after a long outro, now I can actually end the show. Thank you to everybody that has watched this show for the evening. And with that, fly Eagles, fly bleed green. Go Mavs, MFFLs. Take care of yourselves, everyone. Stay safe. Have a good night. And I will, or we will, in this case, see you next time. Good night, everybody.